What is up, guys? It's Mason once again, and we are continuing our coverage of the Olympiad, Ghana's games. And yes, I know round 6, where's round 5? Yeah, that's just me being me sometimes. Anyways, let's jump into the games. We'll look at 2 games from the open section, 2 games from the women's section, and we'll get on with it. So this is the game between Darman and Jake versus Anhuere Bernard. We have e4, c5, Sicilian defense, knight f3, d6, c3, the Alapin, knight f6, h3, and then g6. And I was saying that anytime I see g6, I always just call it a dragon. But yeah, it's a Sicilian, or like an Alapin Sicilian with g6. Bishop to d3 looks like a funny maneuver. The point is to get the bishop into this c2 square. Bishop to g7, bishop to c2, castles kingside, e5. Basically looking or trying to prevent your opponent from playing this d5 d4 move, basically just holding the position as well as possible. d3, h6, knight bd2, bishop to e7, queen to e2, knight to c6, rook to d1, b5, knight f1, and then a6. So basically, the thing you notice, the kind of theme you notice about this game is that it's like white wants to play this d5 move, and black is kind of defending it. So you always look at what are the possibilities, because when you look at these archers hiding in the bush, you realize that once they reveal themselves, they are very dangerous sort of attacks that white can unleash on black. So it's the kind of theme that you notice in this game, and Bernard does a good job of always monitoring it, right? There are times, yes, you could play d5, but it may not be as optimal as you want. So you always have to check, what can I do? How can I distract my opponent's forces and get this whole d4 idea in? That's basically what's going on here, but Bernard is not allowing it. And then he goes this b5 move, and after knight to f1, it's a sort of tricky move. I'm trying to come to the king side to cause problems for your king, and at the same time I'm trying to play d5, because if you don't watch this position and let's say you just continue rushing towards your opponent, d5 can be played, and there's a weakness here, right? So these are sort of like things that you have to like look out for. Again, of course, I'm not playing the best move, but I'm just showing you the ideas. Sometimes it's good to know the ideas. We have a6, knight to g3, and then queen to c7. Whenever a rook is on the same file with your queen, regardless of how many pieces are in between, you have to let that queen flee. Okay, so queen to c7, bishop to e3, knight to d7, and he's now transferring his forces over to the queen side, because just as the bishops are targeting here, his bishops are targeting here, right? And it may seem strange. It may seem strange, but yeah, sometimes that's what happens in a chess game. You may not always have to attack the king. You may attack, create weaknesses on one side of the board and then succeed from there. We have king to h7, rook a to c1, knight to b6, bishop to b1, queen to e7. What I already said, you always have to do that. And b3, b4, c takes, knight takes, a3, knight back to c6, b4, and black is in a very like okay position. Black is doing very well here. We are simply going to play knight to d4, and after the trade, yes, the position is open, but now whole d4 idea can never be done, and this bishop is staring at granite, right? So black has actually succeeded in mitigating any sort of kingside attack that white wanted to go for, and now black can still focus on his ideas. So we have rook to c6, knight to a4, very nice square here that you want to target. Knight jumps into e2, queen to d7, rook c to c1, f6, just trying to hold the position down. f6, bishop to a2, trades of the bishops, which I didn't really understand. My PC is lagging. Trading of the bishops I didn't really understand, because I was thinking, wait, all your bishops are on dark squares. Your light square bishop is your strongest piece. Why would you help your opponent develop his worst piece? But it's completely fine. Rook f to c8, queen to b3, h5, knight to d2, bishop to h6, trying to activate the bishop, and then possibly trade here. Rook takes c8, rook takes c8, knight to c4, bishop to f8. And this bishop to f8 move is so crazy. As the moves go on, you see how like good this move was. At first I was thinking that he wanted to put the bishop here to provoke the trade of the rooks and to also try and control this file. But then after bringing it here, I was like, well, what could he be doing? Of course, to defend this guy so that the queen is not tied to the defense of the pawn, but then it serves a greater purpose. Okay, so now we have f4, rook to c7, rook b1, king to g7, rook to f3, queen to b5, and h4, missing completely what Bernard was planning here. Knight to c5, because now if you take, you're losing your queen. And after the queen goes back, he misses this whole entire plan. Knight takes e4, temporarily sacrificing the knight, because if you do take, I take back, and you have to deal with this pawn, which is crazy. So we have pawn takes, queen to f8, and the beautiful rook takes c4, pawn takes, queen takes, and now look at this. Yes, you sacrifice the exchange, but these armada of pawns are really going to be a problem for white, right? We have knight, queen takes, knight jumps into c3, and his opponent is like, nah, I can't let this happen. Rook takes, pawn takes, material is equal. Black is having a slightly better position, and these pawns can't do anything. No, these pawns would have been a problem if he could have started pushing them, right? But you can't push them because of this mad lad on the board. That's why I was like, wow, this bishop move, either he did not see it or he saw it, but that move was just crazy. Rook takes c3, b takes c3, knight e3, a4. Basically softening up the structure here and trying to go for more. B takes a5, bishop takes a3, a6, and then bishop to c5. The bishop now serves as a guard against this position. We have king to e3, king to f7, knight to d5, and here maybe I mean, this move is not that big of a deal, but the engine here said that he should go to c4. That if black plays c2 here, he has a much better position. Reason being that first of all, the knight can't capture it. Second of all, you are able to develop with threats before your opponent is manages to actually capture this pawn. It's all a matter of like move timing, is how I saw it. And possibly you can get your king or your position more active before your opponent can sort of make a defense. That's how it looked like to me. Because in the actual game, Bernard attacked the knight, and after takes king up, the king is ready in the defense. But if you had played c2 for the king to come in here, but the time you get this exact same position, it's just a one move difference, but it's possibly very key if you get what I mean. G5, takes, knight to d1, h4, takes. And now I looked at this position and I was like, wait. It looks like black is winning, but this position could be easily drawn. There could be some strange position where you sacrifice your knight for this pawn, and this is just a draw because the king, the bishop is not on the same color, not the same color as the queen square or as the promotion square. So if I can get my king maybe closer to the pawn, sacrifice my knight for the pawn, this is a draw. And that's when I realized, oh, actually, there's nothing in this position. So, yeah, from this point on, Bernard tried, but I mean, when they realized that there was nothing more in the position, they just agreed to the draw. That was the first game. We spent so much time on the first game. I'm trying to avoid that. Next game is the game between Mizzy Jack and Frimpong Smart. Which also was an interesting game. We have this same Slav defense. I'm thinking, I'm seeing this every single day. I used to think it was an annoying move, but now I'm beginning to appreciate it. A6, E3, B5, B3, bishop to G4, bishop to bishop to E2, E6, bishop to D2, and then bishop to D6. You'd be saying, wait, what kind of structure is this? Aren't you just making your pieces bad, but this is completely fine. The knights will always have this square. There are also plans of e4, e5 if you do so, please. But basically, it's possible. I mean, taking this from a Scandinavian point of view, if you treat your light squared bishop for this knight, you'd want to put your pawns on the light squares to kind of handle the loss of the bishop. Queen to c2, knight bd7, h3, and then bishop to f5. We have wait, I'm on the wrong position. Smart should be black. Yeah, I remember looking at the game in this direction. So Smart is playing as black. Bishop to d3, then he plays b4 here. Now, in this position, something interesting happens. This, I mean, again, speaking basically on chess principle, your bishop is a light squared bishop, right? This is your bad bishop because majority of your pawns are on the light squares, and this is your opponent's good bishop because majority of his pawns are on the dark squares. So ideally, if your opponent gives you this kind of trade, you want to go for it, but he doesn't go for it. He plays b4, which is actually a nice move. And after knight to a4, he plays knight to e4, and after knight to e4, his opponent plays c5. And here I was saying that on a principle basis of chess, these moves don't make any sense, because you want to take away your opponent's good pieces and keep so you want to take away your bad pieces, keep your good pieces, and take away your opponent's good pieces and leave him with bad pieces. Now, when you look at the nature of this game, the structure is closed, and in understanding of chess principle, you want to keep your knights as against your bishops. Now, normally in every chess game, the game is going to end up being an open game, so most people prefer to keep their bishops. But as a principle, that's what you want to do. So after knight here, I was like wondering, what does this move do? Of course, the knight is good on this square, but allowing the opponent to capture the knight for the bishop does not really make much sense. Then c4 is played here. He goes knight takes, and again, I'm like, wait, why there? Because this bishop is already bad, right? Again, this is the bad bishop, this is the good bishop, and a knight here is very useful as against the knight here, as against this bishop, right? So it's like, why trade the knight for the bishop? You know, again, I'm speaking in principle. If you're looking at the board in a different way, maybe this, what I'm saying, doesn't make any sense. But he goes this way, takes, bishop takes, and then I think he misses this because maybe he assumes that, okay, after I take here, queen has to take and I can save my bishop. But he misses this whole idea, and now after bishop takes, you have pawn takes, and now you've lost your good bishop. Remember, because of the light squares, you've lost your good bishop. And you see that this puts Smart in problems, right? So now we play bishop to b5, knight to c5, a5, knight to c5, a5, and we get a4 here. You don't capture en passant, knight takes, pawn takes, and yeah, you can see there's a very glaring issue in this position. Bishop to a6, knight to e5, bishop to b7, and this bishop is just going to have one duty, and that is to look after this pawn. f6, necessary move, get the knight out of this active square. Castles kingside, rook f to e1, e5, e4, d5, and black is looking okay, but white has more problems he can create, right? We have knight to h4, g6, f4, queen to d7, f takes, queen comes in, queen to g5, queen to g7, knight to f3, targeting this weakness, and then we have rook a to e8. And here I was talking about an idea that white could go, right? Just remaneuver your knight and come in here to target this weak pawn. Instead, that's not what we get. Whoa. What's happening? Sorry. It's a PC thing. Let's get back to the position. And here we get knights to h4, basically coming in here, possibly putting your knight in here. Very nice square to be in. We have g6 preventing it. f4, queen to d7, takes. Okay, before you looked at this, and now he brings the bishop back. queen to g3, queen f6, rook king h2, queen f4, trading the queens, king to g3, rook to f6, h4, h6, rook to f1, king to g7. I want to get to a specific position. Knight to h8, rook e to f8, rook takes f6, rook takes f6, and we have the knight coming back. And at this point, I was like, wait, white has successfully white has succeeded in removing the defender of this square, right? So after rook to f3, okay, you can just take it, but there's I think I've forgotten the position. There's a specific position where instead of going this whole route, white could have just easily played knight to d2 and come here, and that was after the trade of the rook. I'm trying to remember that position, but then that would have really helped him, because now your opponent doesn't have that defense anymore. I think it's after here, pawn push. Okay, well, that position is lost on me. Can't remember where it was. That's what you get when you get these kinds of recaps. Rook takes d4, rook a3, knight to e5, b3, and here I was making this funny joke that I made this bad move that you can win here, because after I was saying what was the move I was saying? I was saying rook takes, if knight takes, then you can win with pawn push, I think, because takes, pawn push, and your opponent can't win. What I did not see was that your opponent can simply go check and then come this way. Anyways, b3, not the move. Okay, so b3, rook comes in, check, king goes into f6, knight takes, rook takes, and then the rook comes in, like we spoke about. Rook takes h4, check, king to g3, rook goes to c4, knight takes a5, takes, check, and eventually we get into this position where they trade off the rooks, and this is practically a draw. Why is it a draw? Yes, your opponent might have a knight, but the moment I trade off one set of pawns, this position is a draw. So as white, you have to find a way to capture my pawns without trading the pawns, right? The moment that the trade happens, this is a draw. And that is basically what is going to ensue here. So we have g5, king g3, king f5, knight d4, king e4, knight f3. And the trick here, after these couple of moves, is that you just don't want the knight to get close to the king, right? You just don't want the knight to get close to the king. So as long as you prevent the knight from getting close to the king, this position is just going to keep repeating itself. And then eventually this position is going to end in a draw. Pawn push here, king just takes. This position is just going to end in a draw. So good game from Smart, because he entered into this very bad position but managed to claw his way out. We are at 18 minutes. We have to speed up, and I'm going to try and speed up. Now into the women's section. Jijo is playing against Wajid, or I can't pronounce the name properly. Forgive me. And Jijo is playing as black. I thought I arranged all these. Anyways, so we have e4, c6. We have a Karukan, c4, d5. Takes, queen here. And looks like a Scandinavian, sort of, to me. Knight c3, queen to d8, d4, knight f6, knight f3, bishop to g4, queen to b3. Takes, knight c6, queen takes, knight takes, bishop comes in, takes, and all these moves. And now we get into this position where black is better, right? You look at the position, you realize that, okay, white's pieces are not good. Like, we have an isolated, double isolated pawn here, you have an isolated pawn here, and you have some possibly connected pawns here, right? And that's about it. But here black has a lot of weaknesses in his position, right? And white can become more active in this position, especially with the kind of attacks that black is going to be doing towards white. He's going to develop with tempo, right? So we have knight to rook to c8, queen to d5, e6, queen goes back, a6, knight c3, knight c5, and the game keeps on moving, right? Trading off here, actually, I think would have helped white more, because now you reduce your opponent's chance to take advantage of your weaknesses. But white chose to keep the queens, develop, and now castle, and it becomes very clear that black is actually doing quite well. We have king to h8, queen to d3, still trying to avoid the trades, but here we actually do get the trades. And Jijo has what do you call it, a pawn up in this almost endgame type position. We have bishop to c5 and bishop to b6, rook d to c8, a4, rook takes f4, king to g2, and then rook to b3. Before we get there, there was something here. After this move, bishop coming in here, I was saying that it was this getting this pawn is actually very easy, because if your opponent comes in here, you do have this move, right? So winning this pawn is actually a very simple exercise. So this move was Black's way of trying to save the pawn, because now if you do save your rook, I have a, and if you do come in here, I play this move and the position is kept, right? So I mean, it makes perfect sense. So we did get a4, rook takes f3, which was very good. King comes in, and then we have rook to b3. You could have tried to go here, rook to a3. After the pawn push, then you do have this move, right? Trying to force the bishop exchange is something you could have tried to do, but that's not what we got in this game. We have the a5, and then a rushed move here by Jijo. Here you want to take your time. It sounds funny, but here you want to take your time, right? When you look at so many of the moves, one of the things you realize is back rank issues, right? One of the things you realize that there's a lot of problems with Black's back rank. So to save yourself from any of these back rank issues, just play this for now. You are not in any hurry. Your opponent cannot really do much. You always get bishop to d8. Bishop to d8 is always a move you get, right? And even if these pawns are both traded off, even if both these pawns are traded off, you still have the advantage on the king side. Sort of, let's say, I do like this. I'm trying to remember the lines. I seem to have forgotten them. I think this is not the right way to go, but bishop takes, rook takes. You have this move, followed by this move, right? Eventually, the point is eventually you capture this guy and you have a pawn up on the king. You have 2 pawns up on the king side. You could fight for a win there, right? You could fight for a win there. And that's basically what's going to happen. But unfortunately, Jijo gets extremely excited and plays this move. And the moment you see a move the moment this move comes in, you realize that you're in trouble, because White's follow-up is very straight. Rook to c1. What's the problem with rook to c1? Takes, checkmate, right? Your back rank issues have shown again. So once you see a move like that, you realize that, okay, my back rank has really messed me up. And after rook to c1, I was thinking, how do we defend this position? And this is completely fine. This is just completely fine. This may lead to drawish positions, but this just saves your position. The engine here recommends rook to f8. And again, it's because you have a pin here, so your opponent can't just make any winning moves, right? So yeah, that is what she should have found. To her credit, she plays rook to e8. We get a double in on the 7th rank. And after bishop takes, rook takes, pawn takes. Yeah. Once again, her old enemy arises. And the enemy is called back rank. Because now if you try and solve the back rank, you are 1 move too late. You are just 1 move too late. So if the back rank problem didn't exist, we still had a game, if not a win. But not seeing this back rank issue and going for this move really affected Jijo's position, and that's why she lost this game. Now, I wish I could put just a short clip of how I was looking when I saw all this happen, because I was very distraught. I really wanted her to win this game. I was very distraught because she really did well. Like pulling through that massive opponent trying to disturb you in the opening and then coming back, weakening your opponent, and then getting all the way here just to lose. I think that's like very painful. But I mean, kudos to them. They are trying their best. I really like they are trying their best, at least in my opinion. If I were to meet them tomorrow, I'm sure they would beat me like 9 out of 10. But anyways, let's go on to the last game. Around 24 minutes. Let's do this, guys. 30 minutes. Mod is also playing black here. E4, G6, D4, knight F6, knight C3, C6. This C6, which is called the check defense, I've always had gripes with, because again, it first of all, it stops the knight from coming in here. And I think the second thing is that you are trying to take advantage of your opponent coming in here with the bishop. Because whenever I play the Black Lion or the Antiphilidor's defense, one of the problematic moves is the bishop coming in here. And normally, like let's say knight BD7, bishop here, C6, then your opponent can easily run away. And if your opponent runs away, it's not encouraged to keep chasing them. So I think the whole point of the check defense is to either discourage the bishop from coming here, or that if the bishop does come in here, you have this kind of momentum attack, momentum way of pushing the bishop back and gaining space on the queen side. Possibly that's why she likes it. But anyways, it doesn't mean it's a losing move. Anyways, knight BD7, F4, and F4 is a very creative way of trying to force the whole Piet's position, right? Because the point is, if after knight here, pawn push, takes, and queen takes, right? That's the point of the move. And with the lion defense, you want to, for example, like go knight here, and let's say bishop, you want to go here, so that if takes, your knight prevents your queen from being captured, right? So with the point of F4, oh no, hold on, my PC is messing me up. Let's go back. So the whole point of F4 is that if you do decide to go for this whole point again, after pawn takes, knight takes, you get hit with the exact same move, right? And this is just a very boring position to play. Anyways, so queen to A5, queen to D2. Now the queen is no longer going to get hit with that whole idea. E5, knight F6, bishop to E7, bishop to D3, E takes D4, knight takes D4, knight C5, trying to attack the bishop. And was it here? No. Knight C5, bishop to E2, queen B4, rook to B1, castles, kingside, castles, rook to E8, E5, D takes E5, D takes E5, and the knight jumps in. There's so many funny tactics going on in this position, but it's completely fine. You can't take here because your queen is going to be captured. If knight takes, you have queen takes first, I guess. Is that what it happens? No, you have knight takes first, and after queen takes, then you have bishop takes, right? And this position is okay for you. You have ideas of forking here. Yeah, and that's what happened in the game. I don't know why I'm doing that. Anyway, bishop to F4. G5 is an interesting move, trying to force this bishop out of the defense of this square, because you would like to go for your fork. But the second thing is that you can also try and win this pawn as well. So bishop comes in. What's happening? Bishop takes E4. Bishop takes F4. Rook F to E1. Rook takes E5. G3 and then F5. I mean, this is just going to get into this interesting form of endgame where you have this isolated passed pawn and you have a 3-on-3 on the queen side, and then your opponent has the majority on the king side. So if anything at all, black seems to have chances, right? Engine says that it's equal here, but objectively looking on the board, it says that black has chances. We have bishop to G4, rook to E1, rook F3, knight to G3, E3, knight to E4, bishop goes back, wins the pawn, and now this is a problem for white because now you have a 2-on-3 and you have another pass pawn here you have to deal with. So it's like, okay, now things are not looking so good for white. Engine still says that white can defend, but that's interesting. For me, I would be scared here as white. If you can explain to me why this is still completely fine, I'll be okay with it. And here we have E2. Mod does something very nice here. She sacrifices the pawn, but to get this position. And actually this position, I believe, is completely winning. So we had in this position rook to F2. And the move here is rook takes, king takes, bishop takes, king takes. And when you look at this position, this is completely winning for black, right? 2 on 3, 2 on 1. But the difference is that your king is already ready to do something, create problems here. What do I mean by that? King G7, let's say the king comes in here. King G6, A4. King here, king here. So now your opponent's king is tied to the defense of these 2 pawns, right? B5, and there's nothing your opponent can do to stop this, right? If the king wants to start coming back here, I think you can play this move, takes, just to reduce it to just 1 pawn. If your opponent keeps chasing the pawn, you can keep driving him away. King comes in here, takes, and you can shoulder the king away, right? The king can never get to this pawn. You can always shoulder the king away. So this position should be winning for black. But for some reason, and I don't know exactly what happened here, after rook takes f2, king takes f2, mod goes bishop to b1, keeping the knight alive. And that greatly reduces her chances of actually winning this game. So after some developing moves, you realize that, okay, now that this guy lives, there's nothing more. This is basically a drawn game. This is basically a drawn end game. There's nothing going to happen here. I mean, mod can fight because you have a pass pawn here. You can try and fight, but there's nothing more in this position. It's going to be sort of like similar to even smart game, right? Because the promotion square and everything is like, I can sacrifice my, what I'm trying to say, I can sacrifice my knight for this pawn. I think that's a viable option at some point, right? So yeah, the transformation of the position didn't really make much sense. King to f2, g3. We have a transposition here, and I missed. I wanted to plan this very nice for you guys, but yeah, in this position, after knight here, even I fell for this. I was thinking, wait, don't we just win after this move? Because if you try and win the pawn, we can just go pawn push. That's what I was thinking. But something inside of me was telling me that there's something like, why would my opponent voluntarily play a move that puts him in a very bad position? Something has to be here. Lo and behold, there was something. And after bishop to d7, as you can see from the evaluation, white simply plays knight to f4, and this is checkmate. You cannot script this. That is the saddest way to go. That is the saddest way to go. So, like, oh my goodness. I even fell for this. It's the saddest way to go because you were doing so well. Imagine going through all the motions and then having to reach this position, and then you just get a loss. You might be thinking, oh, at least I'm drawing, but nah, you're just going to lose this game as well. It's a very sad conclusion. But anyway, guys, I think tomorrow is a rest day. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. It really does help me out. And I'll see you when the rounds continue, I think on Wednesday. Whew. Will I stream tomorrow? Find out next. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. GMT. All the best. Have a good day. Peace.